Mark Rubin was recently fired from a detective agency for botching a big case. Mark begs Nancy to help him because his life has been ruined. Bess and George want Nancy to help because Mark is hot. I'm not surprised that's the only criteria they care about.
Argofont Book Review, Argofont Book Review.
Mark was tracking a culprit named Christopher Johnson. Johnson stole $1 million in cash from his company. He tried to escape from the police on a helicopter when the helicopter exploded. Johnson died and the money was lost forever. Case closed. But Mark claims he saw Johnson the other day by some train tracks. He has a blurry photograph to prove it. Nancy isn't so sure about taking the case, but Bess and George egg her on, so now she has to do it. Mark thinks up cool names for their detective group and comes up with a theory. What if Johnson had a secret twin brother? Nancy disproves this theory, and Mark decides to get evidence by breaking into Johnson's house. Nancy is shocked. Breaking into someone else's house? That's immoral and illegal. Who would do such a thing? I'm guessing the author has never read any Nancy Drew books before, because Nancy breaks into places and snoops all the time. She did this in the last 3 books. Continuity! Humorously, Mark gets stuck while climbing through the window and hangs there for half an hour before he's arrested for trespassing. Nancy is forced to pick him up from the police station. Thankfully, there's an estate sale at Johnson's house. That gives Nancy a chance to go through his things legally. Johnson had a desk with a lot of secret compartments. A man buys the desk and has it taken to a landfill. He searches it, chops it to pieces with an axe, then sets the pieces on fire. Nancy's finally convinced, okay, something weird is going on here. This is a legitimate mystery, not just a figment of Mark's imagination. Nancy and Mark examine the train tracks and they find some broken glasses. On his own, Mark gets opticians to prove the glasses are the same prescription as Johnson's. This is the only time Mark legitimately helps the investigation, and it happens when Nancy's not around. Maybe Mark is secretly a good detective, and he just acts goofy in front of Nancy. Nancy has a helicopter buddy, because of course she has a helicopter buddy. He confirms Johnson's death is fishy, because the helicopter in question was almost out of fuel. There is no way it could have exploded when the police shot the fuel tank. Nancy's buddy already told the police that the explosion was faked, but I guess they didn't feel like working that day because they ignored the lead and did nothing. The culprit ransacks Mark's apartment for basically no reason, and Nancy learns the cash is probably hidden inside a bank safety deposit box. Nancy sees Johnson in an apartment across the street. She rushes there and talks to some rude people to learn the apartment belongs to Artie Wilson, a criminal who specializes in fake IDs. He's being released from jail in a few days. Nancy decides to reenact the helicopter ride. Mark suggests having the police shoot at them the whole time to make it more authentic. Mark isn't very smart, I've noticed. Mark continues to be foolish as he bumps into the pilot, knocking the helicopter backwards. This is a lucky accident. He dislodges a secret time bomb, which was trapped under the seat. Nancy throws the bomb away in time. Mark falls out of the helicopter. He's okay. He landed in a haystack. That's how Johnson faked his own death. He jumped to safety right before blowing up the helicopter with a time bomb. It's a good explanation with a minor problem. The police were chasing Johnson the whole time. They were close enough to hit the fuel tank with a bullet, but far away enough that they didn't see him jump out of the helicopter? Johnson clearly has an accomplice who planted the bomb just now. Nancy goes to Mark's old work, where she meets Linda and Hal Slade. Slade is the one who destroyed the desk at the landfill, and he makes himself look guilty by breaking into Nancy's car and threatening her. But all Slade talks about is recovering the lost money. He doesn't think Johnson is still alive. That means Slade is innocent, Linda's the culprit. Well, that was a fast investigation. I'm guessing that's why these books usually have more suspects. It's too easy to solve the mystery when there's just 2 people to pick from. Just flip a coin and you've got the mystery solved. Linda is Johnson's fiancée, and they've been working together all along. They've been waiting for Wilson to get out of jail so they can get fake passports from him and flee the country with the money. Linda hid the safe deposit key in Mark's house, which is a really dumb move on her part. Oh, I'm gonna take the key to the $1 million and hide it right next to the detective who's investigating me. I'm not quite sure why she didn't keep the key on her at all times. That would have made a lot more sense. Well, thanks to the key being hidden in Mark's house, our heroes get the key first, but then the culprits kidnap Bess and George. They arrange to trade for the key at the landfill. Mark tries to surprise the culprits with a gun, but he messes up and accidentally shoots himself. That was just a joke, it doesn't really happen, but I wouldn't be surprised if that did happen. Our heroes are tied up and put in a car. The car slowly rolls forward towards a cliff. Nancy smashes her head against the gear shift to put the car in reverse. The car crashes and people are hurt, but at least no one dies. The police catch the culprits leaving the landfill, and Brenda Carlton writes a news report, which gives Mark all the credit for solving the mystery. Nancy is okay with this for once, because Mark got his job back and will never bother her again. The end. Post-book follow-up. I thought Mark was minorly annoying. He's clearly supposed to be a fun character with his klutzy mistakes, wild theories, and non-stop enthusiasm. He's sort of like George in the original Nancy Drew series. But I quickly grew tired of his antics, mostly because Nancy's annoyed with Mark for the first third of the book. The main character openly dislikes Mark. That made me dislike Mark. I thought Mark was going to be the surprise culprit. After all, he finds a hidden time bomb with 24 seconds left. That's too much of a coincidence for me. It felt like he did that on purpose, but no, it was just a random accident. I thought the book's setup was interesting. It's different to have no suspects for the majority of the book, and there is no question about the fact that Johnson's the culprit if he's alive, so the mystery is not really the suspects or the culprit. Some people didn't like this setup, and I can understand that. It's a lot of Nancy making phone calls with little snooping or questioning suspects, and there's only one near-death scene. You could argue that the mystery doesn't really get started until page 60, when the desk is destroyed, or even page 112, when the bomb explodes. Overall, I liked the book. I thought it was different enough to be interesting, and I liked how Nancy made up several fake identities when talking to people. I didn't like Mark, which is a problem because he's with Nancy most of the time, but when I reread the book, knowing he's a joke character, I liked him better. I give Nancy Drew Files number 57, Into Thin Air, a 6 out of 10.